Alrighty guys, so we're just gonna hop right into this video. I am making my favorite soup that I make around the winter and colder weather time, especially here in New York. It's been cold forever. But starting out, I am just going to take some carrots, and I have some zucchini squash and some yellow squash here, but you can use whatever vegetables you guys like. As you guys can see here, I don't have any celery because I personally don't like celery, but you can totally add that as well. I have a red onion. I do prefer white onion. And then I have these mini raviolis from Trader Joe's. You can again use whatever pasta you like. And then I also have some chicken broth and some olive oil. So the first thing I'm going to do is chop up my onion. Like I said, I usually like to use a yellow or a white onion for this, but I was all out. This kind of soup is the type of meal that you just throw all of the stuff in that's like gonna go bad in your fridge type of a meal. I have used a whole bunch of different vegetables in here, and it has turned out super well, but I love just making a nice vegetable soup for the week and just eating it for lunch and having it with like a sandwich or, you know, a slice of like garlic bread or something. I think it's the perfect cozy winter fall meal. Although it's still fall, it's definitely winter here in New York. We had like an ice storm here and it's been really cold, so this is the perfect meal to cozy up with on the couch. And like I said, I didn't add celery to my soup because I just don't like celery at all. I don't like cooked celery, really, honestly. But I'm just dicing up this red onion here, and then I'm adding some olive oil to my soup pan. I think this is called a Dutch oven. Is that what it's called? I'm not sure. I'm not professional here. This is just a girl who cooks sometimes. So I'm just adding olive oil to the pan, like I said. And then once the oil is heated up a little bit, I go ahead and add in the carrots. So I go ahead and grate my carrots because I find that it just honestly almost dissolves into the soup and adds this really lovely sweetness. And I don't like to crunch down on a big hunk of carrot, if we're being honest. So I just like to grate mine, but you can totally do whatever you guys want. If you want to chop it up, you can do that as well. But I like to grate mine with this grater right over the pan that has the olive oil in it. And it's really super easy and quick. So once I'm done grating the carrots, I go ahead and add in the red onion as well, and I go and I mix that up so that it can start just doing a little bit of sauteing so that the carrots and the onions can cook down a little bit. I'm also going to add some pepper as well as some salt to this mixture just to get everything super flavorful. And I like to flavor every time that I add something to the pot because I just think that it adds a lot of nice flavor. And I'm just going ahead and mixing that around again. And then once that is all done, I go ahead and I start chopping up my squash and my zucchini. So as you guys can see, everything is cooking down really nicely. And I have my heat on like a medium low as well because you don't want to burn the veggies. So I just chop up my squash and my zucchini into like little rounds, and then I cut those rounds in quarters. So you guys can see I'm doing them pretty thin because you don't want it too thick. Although I do like to, I know this sounds weird, but chew my soup, if that makes sense. I like to have big chunks of things in my soup so that it's not just like really brothy, if that makes sense. So you guys can see here, I'm just cutting up the squash into spirals, and then I kind of stack those spirals up on top of each other and cut them into quarters. So it's nothing crazy. Like I said, this recipe is super easy. You can use whatever veggies you have in your refrigerator. Some potatoes would be really good instead of like the pasta. I just add the pasta to kind of bulk it up. Otherwise, it's just veggies and broth and it's not very filling, but you can totally add potatoes to this and I think it would be so good as well. I might do that next time. Once I finished up with the yellow squash, I went ahead and did the zucchini. I love zucchini. Any type of way you give me zucchini, I am down for, okay? So I did the same thing that I did to the yellow squash. I just cut it into rounds and then cut those rounds into quarters. And I find that this is a nice, good size because you are adding it to the soup and it will wilt. You can definitely cook this as long as you want if you like your vegetables to have a little bit of crunch to them. I personally don't, but that's totally personal preference. So I added all of the squash and everything to the pot, and I am just mixing it around again, just making sure that everything is nice and coated and just cooking down a little bit. I like to cook the vegetables first before I add the broth, and here I am adding some more salt, just a little bit, you know, to add a little bit of a flavor enhancer, if you will. And once those are cooked for just like a few seconds, a few minutes honestly, I go ahead and add in the chicken broth. I'm using this whole carton of chicken broth because this is a pretty hefty amount of vegetables. I really wanted to use up the veggies in my fridge, so I go ahead and add that whole carton. And I also add in some water because I feel like no matter what, even if I do use the low sodium chicken broth, which I did use, I feel like it's still so salty sometimes, so I just went ahead and added some water to balance out the flavor. And I felt that it did get a little watery, so you guys will see, I tasted it off camera, but I'm adding some of this better than bouillon, just like half of a teaspoon, and this just really deepens the flavor of the soup without having to cook it for a really long time. It's so good. I picked mine up from Walmart, I believe. I've been using this for a really long time. They have it in the cubes. This is just like the soup base, if that makes sense. So I just took that on a teaspoon and just mixed it into the broth and let it dissolve, and it dissolves in like 2 seconds, if that. So I went ahead and added that, and it just adds so much depth and flavor to the soup, and I am obsessed with it. So once that is all added, I'm just going ahead and mixing up everything again, and guys, it looks so good. Oh, I love this soup so much. So once that is all mixed together, I go ahead and set it on the stove, and then I cover it and I let it cook down for about 20 minutes. Once that 20 minutes is up, as you guys can see, the veggies cook down so nicely. The squash is nice and soft, and it is smelling so good in my house, let me tell you. So once it is all cooked down, this is the time that I add the pasta. Like I said, you could totally add potatoes to this. I think that would be amazing. So the first time I made this, I actually added like macaroni noodles to it, and I absolutely loved it. But this is just the pasta that I had in my pantry, so I went ahead and used that. But like I said, you guys can use whatever you want. As you guys can see, this pasta was going everywhere. It was really annoying, but I add that to it. So I add about 1.5 cups. I wasn't really measuring, I just didn't want the whole thing to kind of fall in there, if that makes sense. So I went ahead and added that, and then I let that cook for about another 10 minutes so that the pasta could cook and become tender with the veggies. So here I'm just adding some garlic salt from Trader Joe's just to flavor it, because I didn't add any garlic to the soup. And I'm just mixing that all around, and then within just a few minutes we're ready to serve, and I'm so excited. Like I said, guys, the soup is so easy, and it is great to take for lunch to work because you can just heat it up in the microwave, and it's so tasty. Once I let that simmer for a little bit, you guys can see here how the pasta cooked up, and it looks so delicious. And I'm just serving this up in a bowl. I had this for lunch the day that I made it, and oh my god, guys, it looks so good. And I love how the carrots just add like a little pop of color because they're orange and like so bright. I like my soup to be super brothy, but to have like big chunks in it, if that makes sense. I always wind up with less broth and a lot of like veggies and stuff, but you can totally just add more chicken broth as the weeks go on. Not weeks, as the days go on that you're eating this. And this is it, guys. I really hope that you enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more food content. And I will talk to you girls in my next one very soon. Love you, girls. Bye.